So this is Clifton Powell. He didn't get his first car until he was like 45 years old. And it wasn't even a car. You're going to hear what he has to say about it. But I'm going to love reacting to this because this is one of the biggest pains for most men, that we're supposed to be something by some time in our life. And he says he didn't really start working until his early 50s. Didn't really start making money until his early 50s. And that's sort of like the graph for when most men start to become millionaires is their late 40s, early 50s. But we have this idea of, literally the rap lifestyle, which is you drop a record, blow up, and you win the millions. And we're literally crippled by these ideas of what you're supposed to be by what time. Let's react to this. This should be good.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You got your first car at 45, right? And you got your first bank account at 46?
All right, where you getting all this stuff from, bro? You got a genie at your house or some shit? Hey man, man, people never really heard my story. Or, like I said, my dad was dysfunctional and my sister helped raise me. I grew up in a rough town part of DC and I had to leave the hood on the weekends. I never saw my dad go to the bank. My dad put all his money under the mattress. I never wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a football player. And when I got into this back in the 70s, late 70s, I joined SAG, I think in 79. And then I did 10 years in New York where you're just a theater actor and you're not getting a lot of national recognition. And then I think all of us kind of migrated, Denzel and Sam and Angela Bassett, Ving Rhames, Charlie Dutton, kind of migrated out to LA. And then next thing you know, you're blowing up.
So he's saying a lot in that. He's talking about changing lanes, wanting to be a football player. And then no matter how many dreams you have in that, you got to change your lane and become whatever life is throwing at you. He's mentioning big names, Ving Rhames, Denzel Washington. He ain't on their level, but he was among those that left. It speaks to us learning how to sort of celebrate where we are in life. I mean, I guess he's only probably getting his flowers now, but it speaks to learning to celebrate where you are at this point in your life,
To speak. And I was ill prepared to handle any of it. And I think I was 37 or 38 when I got there. And I really didn't start making money until like late 40s, 50s. So my first car, which I've never spoken about, and I'm not gonna go into this long ass story, Art, because I know they're gonna pick it apart. But my first car was a scooter. I had a scooter. I couldn't afford a car. I did an episode of In the Heat of the Night, and I couldn't afford. I only made $2,500, and by the time I paid my man a little bit of the rent and the electricity bill and bought some food, I might have had about $900 left. And one of my buddies wanted to sell me this big ass Dodge Fury, which is bigger than this room that I'm sitting in. And I said, I'm gonna go get me a damn scooter.
And I respect him for that, because most people be like, how am I seen? How do I want to be perceived? How do I want the world to understand me or see me in this light? Since I'm on television, I'm being seen. He said, listen, I can't afford this. He had the humility to do that. What most people would do, they would live above their means, crippling debt, just to be seen in a specific light. So in other words, I was told some of the best advice I was ever given. When you buy something you can't afford, especially cars, things which people see, those people who are watching you drive that car are enjoying the car more than you are, because they get to see the beauty. They get to see how wonderful it looks. They get to see it pass them. But you get to be left with the crippling debt, wondering, how the hell am I going to get through this? Anyway, let's continue.
And I got a scooter, and it cost me, I think, $700. That was my first ride.
Humble.
And I used to get ridiculed on that thing like to no end, Like my nickname was BET, Black ET, riding down La Brea on a scooter. And I had a little basket on the back. And then I had a scooter accident and almost died.
Damn.
So I got a Ford Festiva, which is about this big. It's about as small as a little Mini Cooper. And people made fun of me inside of that. I had no money. I really didn't have any money. And if you ever lived in LA and had to catch the bus, it's brutal. One time I caught the bus from over Ladera Heights all the way to Disney. And by the time I got there, I was sweating like a slave. And they looked at me like, I know you ain't here to audition. Are you here to pick cotton or audition?
I live in Johannesburg. The same thing. It gets hot. It gets so freaking hot. And there's uphills, there's downhills. You arrive at a place. I experienced this trying to get a job. I went for the interview. It was uphill. With us, Joburg, they got taxis. So the taxi stops down the hill. You walk up the hill. By the time you get to your venue, you're praying some miracle happens that makes you just dry up before you walk into the interview. But this is the reality of living, and people don't talk about this. Hollywood movies are just about, young boy has a dream, pursues dream, gets the girl, gets the dream. All that in between is being squeezed into 60 seconds, 2 hours. But life isn't like that. Life is days. Life is months. Life is years. Anyway, let's continue with this.
I was sweating like a dog. And I thought it would be cool because, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New York. I get my book. I read at the bus stop and have me a little fruit in my bag and food. Man, I sat at that bus stop so long, it was like 90 degrees. So I said, you know what? I got to get something to ride around in. So I got the scooter, and then I got a Ford Festiva, and then I got a little Mustang. And the way I got my Mustang, my credit was so bad that I knew the guy that owned the dealership, and they told me I had to pay for the whole car up front. And he said, man, no, we're not going to do that to the guy. So I went through it, Art. I went through it. And I don't know how I did it. I just didn't quit. And I got ridiculed, man. I remember one time I was outside a club, and I had a rabbit. After my Ford Festiva, I had a rabbit. And this nigga said, hey, this that nigga from Minister Society driving a motherfucking rabbit. Oh, broke ass nigga. I mean, and I remember being dissed by girls, bro. I remember one girl, I met her in the club, Art, and I used to leave the club, it closed at 1:30. I would always leave the club about 1:15. And I had parked my little scooter across the street from the Beverly Center. And it'd be cold at night, so I had my little jacket with my basket, and I hid it all in the bushes, and I go party a little bit. I ain't really have no money. I had like a half a drink, but I see guys and they're like Daryl Strawberry or some of the entertainer guys,
Listen, we all know them days where, you buy one drink and you make it last the whole night. And if you lucky, you see a homie who be like, yo, can I buy you a drink? You're like, oh, finally, I got some relief. So I totally connect with this man's story.
And I was like, man, that's cool. Some of the ball players. And I remember I met this girl, and she said, so what you driving? I said, I'm driving a Lexus. I'm lying, Art. And I look at the clock, it's like 1:45. And I had like 2 wine coolers. And I said, I better get out of here. By 2 o'clock, the whole club lets out. And I'm on my little scooter going down La Cienega. And she pulls up at the light. And she looked over at me. She said, "Oh no, you ain't. You're not trying to take a woman out on that." She didn't say woman. She said B. But she said, "I know you ain't trying to take me out on that piece of shit." And I was just like, and I shot down La Cienega. And I was trying to understand it all. And then the last thing I'll say is after my scooter, like I said, I had a Ford Festiva. And so one day I was at the Lenox? I was at Fox Hills Mall or one of the malls. And I came out and these girls had seen me on Rock. They were like, hey, ain't you the guy from Rock? I was like, hey, how y'all doing? And I looked down a little ways and I saw my little teeny Ford Festiva and I knew I couldn't go get in that car because they would have clowned me. So I kind of just went in a record shop and I was just standing there. The guy said, can I help you? I was like, no, I'm just too embarrassed to go to my car.
At least he was honest about it. Whoa, that's a rough one.
And so after I got it home, I called one of my dear friends who'd been in Hollywood for a while. And I asked her, I said, is it me or was I embarrassed to walk to my car? She said, welcome to Hollywood. And so
there you go. And I'll extend it to just general society. It ain't just Hollywood. It's all these big cities. It's all these places where flash means more than people, where people don't respect process. They just expect you to hit it, strike a home run, just boom, just straight out the blue. Life has process. And, most people live in the lie. Or at least people are going to reflect their own BS on you, So I applaud him for his endurance, for going through all of that. But, life is a process. Life is about process. It's not about, hey, hit it and quit it once. Nah.
When I look back on those days, Art, I just feel blessed that I didn't quit, because you get a lot of flack when you broke and poor and black and dark.
That's it. Especially in these Western societies, broke and poor, black and dark. It's rough out here. So and that's why so many people of color be driving all these expensive cars, living beyond their means, almost like they're trying to wash off the poverty. But from my perspective, know where you're coming from, know how you're going to succeed and prosper, and don't give in to pressure, because that pressure will make you short circuit. But that's just me talking.
I remember meeting the girl. She said, my grandfather told me dark people were bad. I've been through it. I've been left at clubs because I ain't had no money, and then those same people circle back when you're rich.
The courage to even say that. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, but I also hear him. When you ain't got the money, ain't nobody there. Oh, you get the cash. You start doing well. Now they circling back. So, do they really love you? Do you really need to impress these people who don't really love you or give a damn about you?
It's been a lot, man, and we don't have enough time to go through all of that. But I never stopped. I never let it stop me. But it's been a lot, and it doesn't stop. I mean, I talked about it the last time when I was on here, how people make fun of you. We got to be better. We got to be. But I get it. When you're in the limelight, you open, man. You like wide open. No, I'm just saying. So yeah, I didn't get my first car. I really didn't start making money.
So I want to go back to what he said. He says when you're in the limelight, you're wide open, and this is what a lot of people don't plan for, and that is when you're at the top, you become the top pick, right? Like you do one thing wrong, everybody's talking about it. People want fame, but they don't know the price of fame. They don't know the price of ridicule, of being exposed to everyone. Mel Gibson said one of the biggest fears for human beings is public humiliation. And he said because he went through that, you couldn't even touch him now. But the truth is, at the end of the day, is we want something, but we don't know the price we're going to have to pay for it.
Until I was almost in like early 50s.
You didn't start making money till he was in his early 50s.
Yeah. Just can't quit. If you don't quit, there's a guy, one of my guys, forget his name, he's on Abbott Elementary. Just got his first big role at 73. I went in for an audition.
But this is my crazy part. You look at people like Morgan Freeman, who stood their grind. Samuel L. Jackson. Do we have the ability to just wait? Do we have the ability to just stand our ground? Like, we always looking for quick results. It's talking about somebody in his 70s who finally got his big break. I don't know how this life game works. I don't know how this life game works, but I'm trying to hustle. Sorry. Everybody all up in my business right now. So this ain't easy. Like, this game is about perseverance. It's about sticking in it, doing it, going all the way. And it's rough. Anyway, let's continue.
And I'm saying this to the young artists out there who may be struggling. You may be just starting out. I tell my girl as an actress, you can't put a time frame on this, man. You just got to do your work. You got to stay faithful. You got to try to be good to people. You got to, stay vigilant. And my father used to say, all you need is faith the size of a mustard seed. So when I do an evening with Clifton Powell or Behind the Lens, I talk about my journey. I remember going into an audition in it might have been 1983, 84. And I never forget the casting director's name. I can't remember her name, but Bonnie Timmerman. So I go in for this movie called Street Smarts. And this must have been 1982, 83. And so I sign in a call sheet. I go in and they call my name and I go next. But there's a guy sitting in the lobby who was big in New York theater, but he wasn't known internationally or around the country. So I go in and I said, Miss Timmerman. She said, hey, Clifton, you know, I was new to New York, but in the back of my day, you didn't have one agent, you kind of freelance with people. So I went in and I was supposed to read this role, you know, as a chicken man in Street Smart.
Chicken man.
And I said, listen, there's a gentleman out there who I think should go before me. She said, well, what is his name, Clifton? I said, well, his name is Morgan Freeman. She said, who is that? This was 1983, 84. And ironically, Morgan Freeman got that role and he hasn't stopped working, but he might have been in his late 50s or 60s, you know?
There we go. The Bible speaks about perseverance, and especially when it comes to our calling and our purpose. And the truth is, our calling and our purpose isn't supposed to be glamorous. It's supposed to be fulfilling. Those are two very different words. And a lot of people are looking for glamour. They're looking to die. They ain't looking to die on a cross. You know, they want to, you know, they want to sort of want the glamorous stuff, you know, raise people from the dead, you know, make the blind see, all this stuff which makes people sort of crowd around like, how did you do that? It's the swag, you know. They don't want to die on a cross. They don't want to suffer for what they believe in. They don't want to stand for what they believe they're called for, where they believe, because, you know, so I had a friend back in the day who loved music and went through a really tough patch where she just gave up, totally gave up. And she gave up to the extent whereby even she had to almost relearn how to sing, which was, I felt for her. But she almost had to relearn, like recalibrate all of that, which she'd built up over a period of time. But she came back because not everything she thought was going to produce the results, get that money, this, that. She realized this was what gave her a sense of fulfillment, a sense of, you know, a sense of life. This is what made her come alive. And it was sad for her because obviously she was still going against the grain, but now she found out what the truth was. Like, this is me. This is who I really am. But for most of us, some people, and as another friend said, when you stop dreaming, you start dying.